All right, folks, we are now on Succession, Season 2, Episode 10. That's the finale episode of this season. It was one of my favorite, if not my favorite episodes in the season because I think they did such a good job symbolically, not just with things that were going on with the characters and certain storylines coming to a head, but also how they built up for the start of Season 3 with Kendall's betrayal of Logan. So I'm not going to do a scene-by-scene breakdown. I really want to focus on what was so well done about the ship, the yacht that they're on. So, and also how characters stayed true to form. Like early on in the episode, Greg is testifying before Congress. He's fumbling and bumbling, just like you'd expect. Some of the characters change a little bit in the show, and I'm critical of that. But Greg stays true to form. He's a little naive, but he's not dumb. He's pretty smart. He just doesn't always know what to do in the moment, and he gets very intimidated by things. But he's also ambitious. So he's a fun character, and you can watch him develop. Now, they decide that they have to figure out who to sacrifice, and they were leading up to that in the prior episode. They've got to throw someone to the wolves to get Congress off their back, to get this cruise ship scandal into the rear view and carry on. And so one of the comedic elements of this is they go to the Mediterranean onto a mega yacht to discuss how to figure out solving the issues with their cruise ship division. So there's something comedic about that. It's like you go to a yacht to figure out cruise ship issues. So there's something funny there. But yachts, not in particular, but ships in general, and putting people onto a ship and forcing them to figure things out between each other is a really good theme in literature throughout history, in my opinion. So you've got the best example I would think of probably is like Joseph Conrad. So a lot of his early writing, before his writing became more current events and political related, was books like The Heart of Darkness, where you've got these guys on a boat and they're in the middle of nowhere. They've got to figure out, they're in the Congo, and they're encountering darkness, literal and figurative. And it creates for great scenes. And there's a lot of his early books that are like that. And one of the good things here is that it's Logan's yacht. It was designed by Marcia, who's not there at the moment because they're having a beef, and which actually has him off kilter, which is pretty rare for him, it seems. But they're on this giant yacht, and you wonder, okay, could a mutiny occur? Or is it going to be he's going to be able to captain the ship and put it in the right direction? So there's symbolism there. He actually has one of his guys turns on him more or less, or says he can't be involved anymore, so Logan sends him off. It's like kind of sending people off into a lifeboat. It's almost like And Then There Were None in a sense. It's like people start to challenge your leadership, and you're like, okay, you're hitting the road. You think it's a lifeboat, but really you're being sent into your exile, more or less. It's a little closer description of it. Logan also acts very out of turn, and people don't know how to handle it. He's being very humble, and he says he'll take the fall for everything, and he knows that's going to lead everyone to say, no, don't do that, God forbid, and we'll figure it out. And eventually he chooses it's Kendall because he's got a lot of leverage on Kendall due to the death in England from the prior season. But some other good symbolism that goes beyond the ship, beyond the yacht, is when Tom and Shiv take a little excursion and they go to a beach, and Tom she wanted to have a threesome or something with a yacht staff member, and he's like, yeah, I'm not so comfortable with that. And they go and sit on this beach, and he says, look, I'm really not happy with our marriage. And their marriage is clearly on the rocks, and they're literally on the rocks. They're like kind of on this little rocky inlet, this little beach. So I thought the symbolism there was excellent. There's some funny stuff like Roman, you kind of know he's scheming because he says, why don't we just talk like a family, guys? And you wonder, well, is that because he's back from his hostage situation, or is it because he's just trying to maneuver around everyone? So I thought that was good. And at the end of the episode, you have Kendall. You think he's going to publicly announce in a press conference that he is responsible for the cruise ship issues, and actually he turns on Logan. So earlier I spoke in a prior episode about in boxing we always talk about killer instinct when I was an amateur fighter, and the idea is that you can knock someone out, you can be a good boxer, but there's a difference between that and between killer instinct. Killer instinct is where you see a hurt opponent and you go in for the kill and you don't give them a chance to recover. You almost get energized by that, but not everyone has it. And that, it's just something you're ingrained with or not. And Kendall, as he's agreeing, quote unquote, he's pretending to agree to sacrifice himself, asked Logan, do you think I could have ever run Waystar Royco? And Logan says, I don't think you're a killer. You lack that killer instinct. And Kendall's just totally despondent. And Logan actually sort of does himself in there because he now told Kendall something he never told him, which is the missing piece. So maybe he does have killer instinct and he goes and tries to use it in the press conference. But Kendall, and he gets these sort of, not euphoric, but he gets these like elevated moments where he's manic and he thinks he can rule the world, and then it comes crashing down because, he doesn't have that killer instinct, and he also doesn't have the caginess of his father. So it puts him in a really bad position. But it was a really good end of the season. Start season 3 off with an immediate storyline. They tie up some loose ends, they leave some still hanging, and then they create new storylines. So I thought that was well done. Again, the yacht symbolism was really good. Really clever stuff there. There's some more stuff that the episode did well, but that general premise of putting people in close quarters and forcing them to figure out their issues generally leads to really good character interplay. So I like that very much. Season 3, I might do it a little differently because I think the show has not really... It's an entertaining show and they do a lot well, but I don't think they've been able to decide, is it character-driven or is it story-driven? They kind of have not figured out how to either blend the two or choose one or the other. So they go back and forth to an extent, and I'm not a big fan of that. Like Sopranos, you had storyline, but each episode was sort of its own thing, and then you would slightly tie the episodes together. Whereas in Succession, you have episodes that have a storyline, but then within there, the characters are doing stuff, and then you might throw an episode in there with a major section that doesn't really play into the storyline too much, but you try and fit it in, and perhaps even have to shoehorn it. So I think it might be interesting in following season 3, more in the sense of where things are going off, so you can see what happens in a storyline when characters are not true to form, because you'll see the writing changes substantially. The dialogue changes substantially in the early parts, at least, of season 3 that I've seen. So that's something I'm critical of, not because you can't spruce up a show, but you've got characters in season 3 that I'll talk about where all of a sudden they're using, excessive verbiage to describe things when they didn't usually talk in so eloquent a manner. And I don't think that is true to form. You don't just suddenly start speaking eloquently, and you see that with Greg's grandfather, Logan's brother. You see different dialogue that Roman is using. It's just a whole different writing style, but it looks like it's the same writer who's the show's creator. So that's, I think it'd be interesting to follow that, because you can see where great shows like a Sopranos almost always stay true to form, and the characters, to the point you feel like the characters are real people. That's how accurate the writing is. And then shows like Succession, where at times it can go a little bit off the rails and not stay so true to form, and that's what could take away from it actually being a great show in the long run. So I think that'll be the theme of season 3 for me. It will still be episode or multi-episode by episode, but more in the sense of where things are off a little bit. But I don't want to make it only critical. I just think that would be a fun way to focus on this. So thank you for watching. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching on Instagram, please follow. If you are watching on my website, please subscribe to the email list. Again, we don't bombard you with emails. It's just to know who follows us and who wants to be alerted when new episodes come out. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.